Alrighty then. So I want to explain to you the controversy around the idea of Psychonauts 2 having the ability to have an invulnerability cheat. Really, it's a toggle. Cheat's kind of almost like a derogatory phrase for it now. But let me give it a little background. So basically, Psychonauts, which is a platformer, has added the ability for players to be immortal. Nothing's going to hurt them. And the goal here is to make it accessible for more players, because, hey, it's great. Anybody can play this game. That would be fun, right? Well, there's a subset of players who are frustrated that this would be added to a game. Now, a lot of people are looking at this subset of players and going, why are you mad? This is just an extra feature. And those players are responding with saying, it's an insult to gamers. Well, I mean, that seems a little weird, right? But I can actually empathize a bit with them. And when I say empathize, I don't mean I agree. I want to say I empathize because I have been in an interesting position with an interesting understanding of knowing what type of mindsets lead to that thought. Let me explain. So I worked with Shadow of War as a community manager. Super fun, great job. Well, we also had a challenge. That challenge was that we had to explain that this single-player main game was going to have microtransactions in it. And basically, if you've never played Shadow of War, just imagine the game of Pokemon, right? In the game of Pokemon, you go out, you capture a Pokemon, and it joins your team. Shadow of War was very similar. Now imagine if you could actually buy Pokemon, right? And not just like a special every once in a while buy a Pokemon, but you could go and get like a loot box randomized thing of Pokemon with in-game money or with real-world money. Now the question that you would ask is, why would anyone play the game versus you, the random loot thing, right? Well, the game is fun. The game is enjoyable. In the same way Shadow of War was fun, Shadow of War was enjoyable. But here's the big but that comes into this. Players assumed that if you're going to make a store and give players the ability to do this, then obviously the main game must be designed to push those players to go to that store and spend real-world money. The thing that was so difficult for them to understand was the concept that there were other gamers out there who would prefer to have a randomized generator generate this content for them, basically to save time, because it takes time to catch your Pokemon, right? And train them and level them up. So what if you could cater to another audience base by providing other ways for them to level stuff up? Now personally, real world money and that kind of thing, not necessarily my bag, but I also understand the concept of trying to make some more money in a game when there's an audience that doesn't have a lot of time, but potentially has more money, like parents, right? Generally has less time, but also more money. Now, see, the issue here is that gamers assumed that it had to be for nefarious reasons. That the game must be designed in the direction of making people buy from this Pokemon store. And that's what I think is happening to people who are thinking about this invulnerability ability. They're imagining that the designers will now be able to make the game worse. Big quotations on worse. Worse because now they don't have to balance the game as well. Now the game is taking attention away from them as an audience and catering to a different group of players. It's catering to players who need the help, which means potentially that it's going to have other designs that aren't supporting this particular, honestly, toxic group of gamers. But this kind of gatekeeping toxic group of gamers, honestly, they're worried that they're gonna not be catered to as much. Now that isn't a sense of entitlement. It's also a sense of losing something, right? These players are looking at this as a negative thing. They're not saying, oh, how cool this is. I can perhaps be invulnerable and experiment in new ways. They're looking at it as in design hours being focused on something that they don't want. And so that's making them mad. And they're becoming entitled in that response. Now, a message that I have to anyone who is in this position. For one, you do not need to assume the worst case scenario with companies making games and things. I understand that a lot of people have encouraged that kind of behavior, but it's not always the case. It's quite possible that the accessibility content of being invulnerable is just exactly what they said it was for. It's not about making the game easier or less expensive to design. That's totally possible, right? You can find that out through reviews and other people playing the game. The other bit on this is it's important to remember that accessibility options benefits those who don't need it too. If you've ever used one of those run-ups on the edge of a sidewalk before, those exist for people in wheelchairs. But you know what they're great for? Riding a bike up onto the sidewalk, moving a cart of heavy items while you're moving onto the sidewalk, moving your skateboard up. having someone with a walker go up that. Ramps at the side of sidewalks are beneficial for everyone, but they were put there primarily for people in wheelchairs. This is the benefit of accessibility options. They help people who do not need them as well. So keep that in mind, that a lot of this behavior, when you're seeing this anger, generally comes from a place of entitlement, also a place of fear, right? They feel like they're not number one anymore, and that does feel like a take back. And so I'm not saying to be nice, I'm just saying that can be the case. And it's possible also to remind the people that this is a benefit feature that they get. Even if it's not something that they want. Well, I don't know. But anyway, that's where this is coming from. And that's where I think a lot of these mindsets are. All right, see you.